Well, shalom, shalom, everyone. All willing, we're going to finish for Ezra tonight, and I'm just excited about that. It's going to wrap up into this nice little neat bow. If you believe that, I have a bridge in Arizona to sell you. It only tells you that basically it just gets you to this cliffhanger. Don't stop. Don't leave me yet. But yeah, that's for Ezra leaves us with the cliffhanger. What's the cliffhanger? Well, it's going to take us to Yeshua. It's going to take us to the book of Revelation. And isn't our life like living on a cliffhanger right now? We're in the middle of fulfilling that and seeing those prophecies fulfilled in our lifetime. And of all different things, if you remember the last time that we got together, that Ezra was talking about, woe is me, woe is me. We'll get to that. We'll do a quick little review. Why is it that? Because he was identifying as if he was in our time. So what a crazy time. Well, who am I? Well, I'm Pastor John Craig, and Sandi and I pastor Life of Worship Ministries here in Amarillo, Texas. So if you ever have an opportunity to stop by and see us on a Shabbat, any type of gathering on a Sukkot or a Shavuot or Passover or whatever it is, come by, visit us. We would love for you to participate with us. And you can go to our website. Our calendar dates are up for when we're having Pesach, when we're having Shavuot, when we're having Sukkot. So stay tuned, be with us, hang with us during those times. Also, wanted to say thank you so much for everybody that's giving and being part of our ministry in finances and be able to share financially with us. Every bit helps, and it's helping us just get through the month, one bill at a time. And I just want to say thank you so much. And if you haven't had that opportunity to give, or those that are in the archive and are listening to take a chance, go to Life of Worship Ministries, lifeofworshipamarillo.org, where you'll have a little there's a donate button there, and you can click on that and you can send an offering our direction. Or if you're looking for a place to tithe, there's a place for you to do that as well. Okay. I am going to throw a banner up here so you can have that website and let it scroll across the screen. There we go. And what else I was going to say? Yeah, I felt like Bilbo Baggins today. Yeah, because I went to the far north country, and I went there and back again. Just a 360-mile round trip to get up there. Trolls and goblins and dragons and all that sort of stuff on this amazing journey to the rolling hills of the Panhandle of Oklahoma. No, I'm just kidding. It's a lot of fun. But the only thing that I was lacking is the big hairy feet of being a hobbit. So therefore, I am not a hobbit. If anybody's wondering, I am not a hobbit. I want to clarify that just for everybody. Okay, let's jump right into this because we're gonna conclude it. But there's a lot packed in to this final chapter of 4 Ezra. So if you're following along, if you've got maybe the another version of the scripture that has the Apocrypha in it, it might be listed as 2 Esdras. But if you're just catching on right now and you're jumping in with us here on chapter 16 of 4 Ezra or 2 Esdras, man, you've missed out on a whole other 15 chapters, and you got to go back to the beginning, because this entire book that's left out and was not included in the 66 book canon that we know as our Bible, you might want to go back and take a look at it. You can read it for yourself. You can listen to all of the prior recordings here on the Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel. And under the playlist, you will see on the Walking in Spirit Truth Ezra series, 4 Ezra series, and go back to the beginning and check it out. Okay, well, yeah, we're going to jump in and pick up where we left off. Now, do you remember? One of the things that I hit it 2 weeks in a row, so I'm not going to hit it again, but my mind is completely still blown away that there's this celestial body that 4 Ezra is talking about that seems to correspond with this whole idea of Planet 7X, Planet X, Nibiru, whatever. I mean, it's my mind's still blown away, and actually how it's used in the final hours before the coming of Yeshua the Messiah. I'm just really amazed by it. The story is so graphic. I'm telling you, reading this is so much better than watching a movie. But if Hollywood could do a movie on 4 Ezra, on some of these passages that we've read, oh my goodness. Well, yeah. Well, on these last bits, Ezra, remember, he had this vision. He was in the field. He had his scribes with him to record everything that he said for 40 days, and he ended up with a whole bunch of things that he could share with each other, and then with people, but not everything could be shared. Some of it would be locked up. And I think that's maybe where we are today, is that the things that were locked up at the time of Ezra are being unlocked for us to be able to see and be able to understand. Because who would be able to comprehend the very fact that we have hydrogel and nanodot technology and things that have been inserted into our systems of our body that seems to correspond with a microwave cellular type of system that interconnects the Internet of Things with our bodies, and our bodies being a transponder and actually providing an energy to this massive functioning battery in order for this artificial intelligence to be able to fully operate in the world. I mean, who could, why there's no way that Ezra could actually explain that it would have to be locked up. There's no way that Daniel would be able to explain it, and it would have to be locked up. And then here we are. Okay. All right. So if you'll remember that this last time, we were talking about several different things, and it was a message of repentance. And he was talking about, woe to you, Babel and Asia and Mitzrayim and Aram. And we talked about some of that stuff, and about the wrath of Yahweh, and how he was sending plagues, and that there would be lightning. He would cast lightnings and thunders, and that the people would be afraid. And we tied in that connection of Exodus chapter 19 that caused the people to be afraid. And why were they afraid? Is because they had not fully prepared themselves. They were told to prepare themselves for 3 days. And yet, when Yahweh came down on the mountain, what happened? They weren't ready. They hadn't prepared themselves. So, and then it goes on and it's talking about how it's in verse 16, verse 11, Yahweh shall threaten, and who shall not be utterly beaten to powder at his presence. I have some thoughts on that. We're gonna touch on that, but what is it? What is this wrath of Yah? What is this wrath of Yah? Or is it because he's angry? Or is he just trying to get people's attention? As Pastor Sandi talked about on Shabbat, the snort of a camel. It's that which grabs one attention, and as an act of mercy, as an act of, oh, my people, would you not hear my heart? Would you not hear my heart? And so I am going to have to get your attention because I gave you every single opportunity. But in all of your good days and all of your abundance and all the times you can go down to the grocery store and you can pick up your lettuce and you can pick up your boxed macaroni and cheese and you could go to the freezer case and get all this stuff fresh as if it was from the farmer's field. It was so convenient, wasn't it? And in fact, you didn't even have to carry money with you. Just had to insert your plastic card. And it was just so easy and convenient. And I could not get your attention because you would just make your way to Sunday church or even Shabbat services. And it was all good. And you'd have your gatherings, have your little nice little, put on your smile, your little face, and make yourself up. And then you go live your life the rest of the week. And it was just all good. Everything's nice and convenient. And you did it because it was the right thing to do. And yet there's all those other people out there that rather watch the football game. There's rather, all these other people that's like, it's my day off. And so it's Shabbat. I'm going to rest at home. And, it's just more convenient that way. I'm not saying for anybody that doesn't have a fellowship. By the way, I'm not talking about anybody that doesn't have a fellowship where you're at and you can't, or you're on the road or whatever. I'm you know what I'm saying, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? I'm not trying to say that, because there's so many of you that join us online, that join us right here at Life of Worship every Shabbat. And I am so grateful for that. It is so, you know how encouraging that is? That's a whole nother story. I'm just going to say, you guys really encourage me. And so going on with this is, and you've had it easy. And so as the camel snorts, it's like, I've got to get your attention one last time, because for all those that will not repent, it's not going to be good. And I don't want you to have to go through this. And so things are going to happen that's really going to rock you to the core in order to get your attention. Is that mercy? I think that's mercy. So is wrath equal to mercy? I don't know. It's just something to think about. Selah. Think about it. Pause. Just think, every time you see this stuff and it looks like the angry God of the Old Testament, no, think about it. Because that same Yah that was in the Old Testament is the same Yah that was in the Gospels. It's the same Yah that is in the book of Revelation. It's from Genesis to Revelation, everything in between, and all these things that we've discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I really like that. And so look at, so he's consistent. I'm just saying, he doesn't change his personality, because his personality is always the same. He's full of loving kindness and mercy. Think about what the children of Israel said. Think about what Moses said, what David said in the Psalm, that he's full of mercy. What Jeremiah and the prophets all said, full of mercy and loving kindness. And what did they see? They saw these great visions like Ezra did. And why do they continue to say he's full of mercy and loving kindness? Because they understand his heart. Anybody that doesn't understand his heart will say, oh, he's an awfully mean God. And that's where the secular world will shake their fists at the Most High. And that's where they'll curse Yah to his face, as if the very things that are happening are evil unto them, but it is not evil. There is loving kindness and mercy being poured out, because he wants everyone to awaken. And if they've not prepared themselves, then we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So we are over in chapter 16 of 4 Ezra. And what do we have? Verse 13, for as strong as his right hand that bends the bow, his arrows that he shoots are sharp and shall not miss when they are shot into the ends of the earth. And we talked about something about the arrows, and there's a correspondence with the with ballistic missiles. In any type of missile, whether it's a ballistic missile or whether it's one that's shot from an aircraft or a submarine or some type of ship or wherever it might be sent from. I mean, arrows sent all over the world to the four corners of the earth, and plagues, and what else? Fire that's kindled and that can't be put out. We talked about all that before. That's literally it's shaking the entire foundation of the earth. And this is verse 17. I mentioned this earlier, and it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? So first off, he says, woe is me once, and then he says, woe is me twice. When you see that second time, we must take notice. I didn't look up that verse over in the book of Revelation. I should have looked it up, and I didn't do that. But there are the woes in the book of Revelation. I think there's 7 woes, and woe is me, woe is me. Also, that's another phrase that we see in the book of Revelation. This is one of those consistent themes that connect from what we've called the Old Testament period, and then that interim the Second Temple period to that which we call the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah time period that leads us to today. Woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? So it's pretty atrocious. In fact, he says in verse 18 of 4 Ezra chapter 16, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Again, he's identifying as if he's there. So I'm really amazed, because I believe from the way this reads it was as if for Ezra, as Ezra completely experienced this as if he were here. Do you get that? It's as if he was living this thing. I mean, he's literally rattled to the core. Why would he say, woe is me twice? I mean, woe is me twice. Woe is me, right? And then he's listing out these things as if he's experiencing every single one of these. And it's very interesting in the New American Standard Version, because I looked up that thing that he says the beginning of sorrows and great mourning. Does the beginning of sorrows ring a bell to you somewhere? I mean, have you not heard that within the Brit Hadashah, like in Matthew 24, verse 8, where it says, for nation, verse 7, for nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And in various places, there will be famines and earthquakes. Well, that's what we've just been reading about. And then it says, but all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs, is how it reads in my version. That word for pangs, birth pangs, is sorrow, travail. It's an idiom for childbirth. So all you ladies out there, you understand what that is. And so we're going to go into that a little bit more because Ezra actually brings this up again a little bit further down in the passage. And so Yeshua actually goes on and he says in verse 9, then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you'll be hated by all nations on account of my name. And at that time, many will fall away and deliver up one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and will mislead many. And because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end shall be saved. Now, this is really important because that is a resounding theme that we're going to continue with during this discussion we're having this evening. We're kind of following along. We're just part of this is kind of a review, but this review has to launch us into the latter portion of chapter 16. And yes, I agree. I think it's coming. The day is coming, and it's coming very soon. And because you can you not feel it? Like more than any other time in our lives, don't you like your little spidey senses, so to speak, the little antennas that y'all gives us, is like there's something, every day seems like, oh, it seems like another normal day, and until you go and you start checking out the headlines, it's not quite as rosy as it feels, actually, because our little Holy Spirit antennas are up. Yeah, and that's what we're connected with. But going on, it talks about, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish. So it's repeated itself, are sent as scourges for amendment. Now, what's it say for amendment about? Because I mentioned it last time, but it was just saying, what's an amendment? If you have the Constitution, you have amendments. So the amendments add to what was originally said. Or shall we say that we have these things happening, and they're being added to people's lives. They're being added to this time period. And the experience is added to everyone's life. There's no escaping it. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness. They're not going to turn away from their wickedness. And I was looking back over what we just read over the Matthew 24. Why won't they turn? In fact, why in the world, here's the question that I have, why will they deliver you? And who's the you over Matthew 24? He's talking to the disciples. So anyone who's a believer is reading that is like listening to the words of Yeshua, because if the words are read, right? We know if the words are read, that's Yeshua. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kind of playing there, but just think it. They'll deliver you to tribulation, and will kill you, and you'll be hated by all nations on account of my name. And so when you think about that, but for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. So they won't know. They won't know the reasons. They say it's just climate change. Look at the climate change. Look at how it's affecting everything. By the way, remember how we were talking about these, how the hurricanes were going to intensify, and I mentioned something like doubling in power. Well, this last year, I think we had there was one at one point in time. One of the hurricanes had built up an amazing amount of power. It was like 140, 150, 180 mile an hour winds. Do you remember that? I might be lowballing it. It might have even been higher than that, but it was one of the hurricanes that was going close to Florida. And then amazingly, the power of that wind seemed to lose a lot of its energy. So it wasn't quite as devastating as that people thought it might be. And then I talked about how in the Philippines, they had some class 5 typhoons that have, I mean, those are powerful, powerful winds. Some of those typhoons, have hit China. They hit China last year. I mean, just horrible things. And of all different things, since we talked about that 2 weeks ago, I heard Celeste Shalom. She was talking about how winds are going to be coming upon the earth because of these earth changes going on. And it's not because we drive automobiles. Okay. It's not because we had coal power plants. They're extremely clean here in the United States and Canada. They're very, 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 very clean in spite of other countries that don't filter like we do. We're not contributing to anything. All right. Just saying. All right. That's my opinion. I think it's well founded, but all right. So, nothing about driving an automobile or having carbon fuels or anything like that is going to cause, and Celeste Salome was talking about 350 mile per hour winds. Yeah, you heard me. 350 mile an hour winds. What can stand up to that type of wind? I just, that totally amazes me. And then because I've also heard Mike from around the world talking about those powerful, powerful winds that are just going to be like 200 mile an hour winds. And she talked about 350 mile an hour winds. And then I heard from another source about the increasing elements of this, of these climate phenomena that's going to take place. And I'm, and when we're reading about these things, and then these people, and they literally will shake their fist to heaven. He's like, as if maybe they come into this faith of God but it's not the right kind of faith because they want to blame him. Because look at how the non-believing world is elevating Satanism and they're elevating this occultic belief system, and they're talking about, see how good their God is, the God of this world. And I'm saying that with a little g, and bringing forth confusion. And so when they see all these events, they will not tie it together with that this is rightful judgment for the behavior of the world, the sin and the iniquity that each person is involved in. And it says, nor be always mindful of the scourges. But going on, it says, behold, victuals be so good, cheap upon the earth. And we talked about that. And yet then evil's growing, and where upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. I mean, are we not seeing that? And I'm really, really, really concerned because, for example, what's happened in Ukraine, where there's been a major, major defeat suffered by the Ukrainians, and there's a big concern, and there's talks of rumors of war, and all that type of stuff. And then what Matthew 24 talks about, wars and rumors of wars. We got the stuff going on in the Middle East and all this escalation in Taiwan, North Korea. But think about this, and that what is this not an opportune time? If you look at every theater where there's rumors of wars and wars that are going on, is not there an opportunity in each arena, in each theater, for false flag events? Isn't there not an opportunity? Is there not an opportunity where it's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, and then we have to go back and question, wait a minute, something's wrong. Maybe we need a double check. What was really the instigation? What really caused that really catastrophic event that caused that theater of war to escalate to the next level? Think about that. And why? Because that. Remember, we were talking about it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we were talking about all these different wars and the people fighting against each other, and they're going to fight, one against another, one nation against another, one kingdom against another, and all that sort of stuff until Yeshua comes, and then they will stop their fighting and they'll turn and they'll join forces against Yeshua. Well, this is kind of this whole thing, and moving on, it says that verse 22: for many of them shall dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. For the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down, and there shall be no man left till the earth and to sow it. The trees shall give fruit, and who shall gather them? The grapes shall be ripened, but who will tread them? And it goes on right here, and just to kind of, this is in the next part of review, is saying, because who's going to be around? Because literally this machine that's going forth will literally chew up the inhabitants of the earth. It'll just chew them up. And where it talks about that, even to the point, for all places shall be desolate of men. Now, I really think that's not generic men, women, but it can be both men, women. But when we read the rest of it in context, it's going to be desolate of men. Think about where it says within the prophets, and someone can put it in the notes there, where it says that 10 women will cling to that one man. And why? And why? Because the earth will be desolate of men. And so that one man shall desire to see another and to hear his voice. So think about that. Why? Because this machine is going to chew up the men, because it's the men who's been assigned to be the protectors. They're assigned to be the ones that will go forth. You know why men are brain damaged? And I kind of make fun of that because it's kind of hitting some of the headlines right now, and they're going to use it against us. By the way, it's to split. You know how the powers that be have always been dividing. It's they divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. They divide between classes. They divide between the rich, the poor, the educated, the uneducated, black, white, Hispanic, Latino, foreigner. You just name it. You can put it, one type of profession against another, or, the haves versus the have-nots. It's just, they're constantly pitting one against another. And when we see that, then what is the next big thing that they're doing right now? We've been seeing it since the 1970s, where television and movies have started moving away from the strong and the bold man, that the courageous one, and the one that everyone looks up to, and the one who sacrifices his whole life, for everybody else, and ends up dying at the end of the movie, but everybody gets saved, that type of story of the great hero. And then they started bringing in the narratives about the man is no longer the brave one, the hero. It has been the man has been replaced by the heroine, and it is the woman who's amazing, has the great fighting abilities, is able to go in and read the situation and is smarter, and the man is considered the buffoon or the coward, or the the theme, right? And we're seeing that, and now they're coming out with the headlines saying, look, it's really true that women are superior to men, because women have 3 times the connections between the left brain and the right brain as men do. And so therefore they've got the superior brain, and they're more superior to lead the nations and be in the government, be the leadership, and all that sort of stuff. This is what's happening right now. And it's taking the man and removing him from the roles that they're responsible for. What's a man worth now in this type of world? Well, let's just send the man to the front, okay? Because the women need to run everything. And now I'm not saying this is not I'm not trying to speak that this is to diss women. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I am saying is that we have and we carry responsibilities, because that function that God's given women within the home is supposed to have the ability to maintain the home front, to balance many different things while the men are in the field, while the men are hunting, while the men are at war, while the men are handling those things. Men need to be focused. They can't have their brain exploding in all these different arenas. They have to be focused to do the job they need to do so they can accomplish what needs to be accomplished, so they can come home. The protector of the family, the provider for the family. The woman is at home to take care of the business of the family and to maintain the next generation. And that's why we're different. That's why each one has their roles, and we can't say that one is better than the other, because both need each other. That's what I'm saying. All right. So we have here, so there's going to be a shortage of men. Think about that. Yeah. Yeah, Bob. Yeah, that's really true. Alex Jones was actually talking about that. So, but it's really good. He had a really good narrative on it. It just really brought some perspective. Everybody needs to understand that perspective, because that's how society functions. It's how it functions. So going on and saying that that because of this, think about what's going to happen to the land. If the land is if no one's there to work the land, what happens to the land? The land gets overrun by the weeds, and then how are you going to grow? How are you going to grow crops? How are you going to feed the world? That's why we'll have famine. It's a combination of multiple different things happening all at the same time, cascading upon humanity, bringing forth these plagues. And when you have lands that are not being, I'm going to use this term, domesticated, what happens when they're overrun with the briars and the brambles and all of that sort of thing? Then here comes the wildlife. And now that wildlife now threatens whatever is left on the land. So if you have any livestock, you get stock. If you have, your family, your children, all that would be out there. Now there's more predators that will begin to rise up and to multiply and be in the land. And so it's another one of those plagues. And we think about the 4 horsemen, and the fourth horseman talks about the wild beasts. Well, why would the wild beasts rise up? Well, if you can't maintain your land, I mean, how many people's lands went fallow when the cost of fertilizer and diesel skyrocketed because of the sanctions that were placed on Russia? Think about that. And the expenses were too much, and it cost too much. And then we started saying the cost of crops. But I talked with people here in the panhandle of Texas saying, yeah, we're not doing anything this year. It costs too much. We don't have enough money this year, so we're going to wait. Well, what happens when you wait and that land sits fallow for a year? It's going to overgrow. And then going on, and it talks about, so these paths are, verse 32, grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel there through. And then it also says, the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. Again, lack of men. And then the women shall mourn, having no men. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. And it says, in the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their men shall perish of famine. Hear now these things and understand them. I mean, and here's the other side. Okay, now there's scarcity. Well, what will men do? They will make sure that the women and children survive, because it's the women that will make sure those children survive. They will be able to nourish those children and give them, to help give them a chance to make it and to grow and to have children. And so the men will lay down their lives and even give up their food for the sake of their families. This is kind of a hard story, but this is what this word is talking about. And the men shall perish of famine. Hear now these things and understand them, you servants of Yahweh. So, okay, this is because we're preaching to the choir, right? We're all in the same boat. And it says, behold the word of Yahweh. Behold the word. So understand these things, you servants of Yahweh, behold. Okay, take heed, listen, the word of Yahweh, receive it. Okay, why? So it seems like, man, this is kind of gut wrenching to hear these things and kind of think about the prospects of it. And to me it is, but he's saying that to bolster our courage. So this is not to discourage us. This is to bolster our courage. Remember, Ezra is experiencing this as if he is here right now with us. Behold, the word of Yahweh, receive it, believe not the Elohim of whom Yahweh spoke. And it's now that's a small e. So don't believe that whispering in your ear. Don't believe those false gods, false narratives, false doctrines, those doctrines of demons, as if everybody's going to be pulled up out of this earth. And, just because you said that prayer, you walked the aisle, said the prayer, and, oh, behold, you're saved. No, don't believe those false things. I'm telling you these things because you need to have courage. You need to be bold. And it says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack. And when a woman with child in the 9th month, so here we go back, the birth pains, remember we're talking about that, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings. So, this is speaking of that which is about to be birthed. Remember, now I want to ask you this. What is the typical, women, you can put it in the chat. You can put it in there and let me know. What is the typical amount of time when the birth pangs intensify before the baby is born? Right? Think about that. Think about, they might start 24 hours ahead of time. It's like, here's a pain and there's a pain. But when the frequency starts to happen and that child is about to be born, what is that margin of time? What is the margin of time? And here, Ezra says this. So quickly, put it in the chat. All right. And he says, behold, the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the 9th month brings forth her son. And then she says this, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains, when the child comes forth, they slack not a moment. So think about that. All right, you didn't get it in the chat quick enough. No, I'm kidding. All right. So, but he says this, as when a woman with a child in the 9th month brings forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains, when the child comes forth, they slack not a moment. So it's like those last 2 or 3 hours are the greatest travailing time of the childbirth. Am I not right? Right? I mean, I'm not a woman. I haven't had a child, but you would know. And men, because you get torn up when you hear the cry of your wife, and it rips you up when your wife is hurt. And so think about this. Yeah, there's all this stuff that's happening, but then when the greatest intensification of the travail comes, it's short, relatively short. That trip that I took today was 360 miles round trip. It's a 6-hour drive. And so that's twice this. It's 2 to 3 times this, because it says 2 to 3 hours. And so that 2 to 3 hours is really kind of short. That's half my trip that I took today. And it says, but it feels like an eternity. Why? Because it's intense. There's great travail. And so but why? Because the baby has to be born. Remember, the baby has to be born. And yeah, that's exactly right. So at the pains of the childbirth are forgotten when the mother, I'm going to put that on the board, when the mother holds the baby for the first time. So this is the door. It's the door that comes with great travail. And Ezra's saying, look, don't be discouraged, be encouraged, because there's a way out. I'm going to get there. We got to get there. Okay, I got 20 minutes. All right, so moving on. And even so, shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it on every side. On every side. Oh, my people, hear my word. Make you ready to your battle. And in those evils, be even as pilgrims upon the earth. So what's it mean? So in other words, this is, what are we doing right now then? We're sharpening our swords, so to speak. We are preparing our shields. We're getting everything ready for our defense, our protection, our preparation, so to weather the storm, so that we can weather the battle, because because it's coming. And so we've been given a warning, and then it tells us here in Ezra, he says, basically he's talking about that he who sells, let him be as one who flees away. And he that buys, let him be like one that will lose. And he who occupies merchandise, so that he profit by it, and he that builds, so that he shall not dwell therein. And he that sows, as if he should not reap, but also he that plants that vineyard, that he shall not gather the grapes. And they that marry, as they shall not get no children, and they that marry not, as the widowers, and therefore they that labor in vain. For strangers shall reap their fruits and spoil their goods, overthrow their houses, and take their children captives. For the captivity and the famine shall they get children. And so what I wanted to say with this is we will be working up to the final moments, right? And we might not reap the rewards. All right. So in other words, look at this. I'm just thinking about the amount of work that I'm doing right now. I don't get paid for from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes even longer. As it took 4 months on several assignments. I'm still waiting for a couple assignments to get paid for, and from last year. And so I have to wait for those things, because certain things have to cycle through in the process, and other things have to be done before they actually say, okay, now we can. And I'm thinking, okay, all this work that I'm doing, I might not see those checks. I might not see it. I was like, I could sure use those checks. Like, I do the work today, I'd sure like to see that payment tomorrow. Wouldn't we all like to see that? But we might not see it. And let alone then a time, it'll all be cut off, and we won't be able to work. We're not going to be buying. We're not going to be selling. We're not going to be gathering. We're not going to be sowing. And guess what? We're not going to be marrying, and we're not going to be we're having children, because it's all going to come to a stop. And then it says this, and then here's those hordes. These, think about like there a lot of discussion in the media, where the real news has been talking about the trafficking, the slavery. I mean, I saw some videos over the weekend about slavery in Africa. I mean, it's real. They have slave markets in Libya, and they had these children, children from the heart of Africa, and they were in these big sacks. And they were tied up at the top, and they were taken to market, and they're inside these sacks. And the people that were going to buy the children, they wanted to check out the merchandise, so they opened up the top of the sack. And here's this child who's been squatting in the sack, standing up out of the sack. And I mean, so think about this. They are taking our children captive now. And they're taking our children captive in our schools today, and they're putting stuff into their arms that's just literally killing them. And how many children are being used coming back and forth across the border, and they're coming back multiple times. The testimony of the Border Patrol is saying, I know this child has been here before. And they pick them up and they send them back across the border again to bring another alien in. Okay, so this is happening right now, and it says, and they that occupy their merchandise with robbery, the more they deck their cities, their houses, their possessions, and their own persons. There is an elite group that is profiting. They're profiting off your and my backs, and they're profiting off the backs of these people that don't know what they're walking into. They get a debit card full of money, and they think that they're coming in to live in this land, and then they're going to be stuck living off the back of the government, and the government's going to use, I'm not going to say the government, it's those, the mafia type people in the positions of government. All right, let's go on. And it says, verse 48 says, the more will I be angry with them for their sin, says Yahweh. Like as whores envies the right, honest, and virtuous woman, so shall righteousness hate iniquity. When she decks herself and shall accuse her to her face, when he comes that shall defend him, that diligently searches out every sin upon the earth. Yet Yahweh is coming with a torch. When I say a torch, I'm with a powerful spotlight. In Britain, you know what I'm talking about, what a torch is, right? Okay. But a powerful flashlight, powerful spotlight that's going to search out every nook and cranny of that leaven, like we have going into unleavened bread. We're looking out for every single crumb of yeast that might still be in the house. We're going to find it, that iniquity, the false doctrine, these horrible actions of the mafioso government that's trying to teach us to follow after, and religious systems to follow after doctrines of demons. By the way, those are you guys that are still going to churchianity. I mean, you're still going to Sunday church. You're still following those doctrines. Think about it. Who's holding you captive to those doctrines? It's a daughter of Rome. Okay? Come out from her, my people, is what the word says. And I want to go to Revelation 18:4. Okay, just real quick. Revelation 18:4. I was supposed to read it earlier. I didn't. Yeah, 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you may not participate in her sins, and that you may not receive of her plagues. For her sins have piled up as high as heaven, and Yah has remembered her iniquities. That's Revelation 18:4 and 5. And going on, it says, pay her back even as she has paid, and give to her double according to her deeds in the cup that she has mixed twice as much for her, to the degree that she glorified herself and lived sensuously. To the same degree give her torment and mourning, for she says in her heart, I sit as a queen, and I'm not a widow, and will never see mourning. For this reason, in one day her plagues will come, pestilence and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire. For Yahweh Elohim, who judges her, is strong. Isn't that the same? Isn't that what I just read and what we've been reading here for Ezra? Let's go on, going on a little bit more. For yet a little while, and this is verse 52, in 4 Ezra chapter 16, verse 52. For yet a little, and iniquity shall be taken away out of the earth. Okay, remember the birth pain? It's going to be short. It's going to be really powerful right there at the end. Short but powerful. And then it just says, for yet a little, and iniquity shall be taken out of the earth, and righteousness shall reign among you. Let not the sinner say that he has not sinned, for Elohim shall burn coals of fire upon his head, which says before Yahweh Elohim in his glory, I have not sinned. Think about that. But okay, now I heard this idiom about the coals of fire upon his head. Talk about let it be as coals of fire being on their head. It used to be back in the day that, especially among the poor, and as a community service, and maybe even just a community service, when during Shabbat, when your coals, what happens if your coals go cold on Shabbat and you can't keep your food warm, right? So a guy would come with a pot of coals and he would carry it on his head. And so what this idiom is that he comes with coals on his head, which is mercy. I've got coals for you so that you can warm up your food. And so So I always thought of like this, the heap of like heaping coals upon someone's head is like a curse to that person. But instead, let's look at it as Yahweh is going to pour upon that person that which is necessary and needed. It's going so that it's that last, like, my coals are out, I need fire. And so the man with the coals on his head is going to pour it out. Think about that. And why? To bring, like, here's one last dose to survive. One last dose of saying, here's the mercy of Yah. Here's a way to get the fire going, right? And then it goes, and he continues to read, behold, Yahweh, I know all the works of men, their imaginations, their thoughts, and their hearts, which spoke but the word, let the earth be made. Think about this. Yahweh knows everything, the thoughts and the intents of the heart. And we've read that before in the scriptures. And he spoke but the word. Oh, I gotta hurry up. And let the heavens be made, and it was created in his word. So in other words, it's reminding us, he spoke the word and everything was created, the heavens and all that. He searches the deep treasures. He measures the sea. He's looking for the treasures of the earth. And who's the treasures of the earth? I think we are. And his word even hangs the earth upon the waters. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just talking about this and how he supplies even water for the mountaintop, so there'll be fresh water for those that are in the valley. And he says, he made man and put his heart in the midst of the body and gave him breath, life, and understanding. And I like to think of it this way. Think about the heart that Yahweh put his heart. Now, I have a heart, so it's my heart. You can say, well, John, it's his heart. His heart he put in us. So would we want to even ignore his heart, put it in the middle of our body so that we had breath and life and understanding? And it says, yea, and the Ruach El Shaddai, which made all things and searches out all the hidden things in the secrets of the earth. Surely he knows your inventions, that ye think in your hearts, even them that sin, and would hide their sin. This is what happens on the mountain, and Exodus chapter 19 is that they couldn't hide their sin from Yah. And so they trembled and they said, Moses, you just take care of it. And therefore, as Yah exactly searched out all your works, and he will put you all to shame. And when your sins are brought forth, ye shall be ashamed before men, and your own sins shall be your accusers in that day. Just think about that. So Yah just has to come as one who's bringing coals of fire. He said, and you're out. You didn't plan. You didn't keep the fire going. You didn't keep the coals burning. You didn't keep it warm enough. And I'm coming here and out, and in that we are exposed. Our shame, our evils are exposed, and those are the things that accuse us, and those are the things that we are held accountable to. We are held accountable. It doesn't matter. Well, I never heard the gospel. No, there's no excuse. We know. It's in us. It was he put the heart in us. What will you do? Or how will you hide your sins from Elohim and his angels? Behold, Elohim himself is the judge. Fear him. Leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall Elohim lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble. There's the key. How do we get delivered out of this? Turn your back from it all. Just turn your back from it all. James 4:12 tells us that Yeshua is both Lord and Judge. Remember? And so here it says Elohim himself is the judge. And James 4:12 says that Yeshua is the judge. Elohim is the judge. Yeshua is the judge. Looks like it's the same person. All right, just wanted to say that and put that in there just for y'all to think about. Think about it. Just chew on it, okay? Chew on it. Just chew. I want you to have things to be thinking about. For behold, the burning wrath of the great multitude is kindled over you, and you shall, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle, and things offered unto idols, and they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. Okay, stop. Wait a minute. Okay, that was kind of weird, Shakespearean type of sounding words and language. What's it saying here? In spite of all this, there's a great multitude that don't like us. We read that over Matthew 24. There's a great multitude that don't like us. And they're going to think that we're the cause of all this trouble in the earth. Therefore, they're going to take everything they possibly can from us. And anybody that is saying, I'm just going to ride this out. I'm not going to choose a side. I'm just going to ride it out. I'm going to be neutral on this. Guess what? You're idle. You're idle. And you can't ride the fence. And therefore, guess what's going to happen? Verse 69 is very telling. And they that consent unto them, who's that? These evil people. They that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. So if you try to remain neutral in all this, guess what? You just joined them. Because you can't just be apathetic. You can't just kind of hold back. You can't just hide in a bunker or a cave. You can't just stay silent. You can't do that. You must make a stand. You must know what you believe and and upon whom you believe, and you must keep his Torah. Because if you don't, then you will be held in derision, because you're consenting with them. You're consenting with their slavery, their trafficking, and all that sort of garbage that they're involved in. If you sit there silent and in reproach and trodden underfoot, and guess what? Then those of us that remain silent will be steamrolled. Exactly. And for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear Yahweh. So think about that. What did we read? Matthew 24 earlier. A great insurrection against those who fear Yahweh. And it says in every place and in the next cities. And when it says the next cities, I believe it's talking about cities at the time of Ezra that were not yet built. So those future cities, like the cities in North America that weren't built until we see it in our 200 years plus here in this nation. Okay. And they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear Yahweh. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen. And they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. So this is how we separate from them. They're going to hate us. They're going to go after us. They're going to do everything they can to take everything from us. But this is how we're tried, and we'll go through the fire, and we're going to be as gold. And it says, "Hear, O ye beloved, says Yahweh, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, and I will deliver you from the same." I will deliver you from the same. I'm going to reemphasize that. But be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for Elohim is your guide. He's your guide. Don't be afraid. Don't doubt, because he's your guide. This is why we encourage one another as we see the day drawing close. And the guide of them who guard my commandments and precepts, says Yahweh Elohim. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift up themselves. Woe be unto them that are bound with their sins and covered with their iniquities, like as a field is covered over with bushes, and the path there covered with thorns, that no man may travel through. It is left undressed, and it is cast into the fire, being consumed therewith. Remember this: fire is fertilizer. Fire is fertilizer. Here's some verses to look up. I got to close. We're out of time. Revelations 12:17, Revelations 13:7 and 8, Revelations 14:9 through 13. You can go back, rewind that. You'll get those. Read those. They kind of go along with this passage. We're done. We're done with Ezra. Thank you for joining me. I sure appreciate it. Whew, mouthful tonight. Glad you're with us. We'll see you next time. Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.